Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about something very special and something that's a bit different than what we've been talking about up to this point. If you've been watching my videos, you may have noticed that I've been focusing on the teachings of Jesus Christ that are practical in nature, things that are purely practical that we can immediately put into use in visible ways in our lives. And I've been doing this for a reason, because while I do want to open up the teachings of Jesus Christ to his believers, all Christians, I also want to make these videos um, something that even non-Christians can explore. Anybody who's just interested in learning about the teachings of Jesus. However, Jesus did teach about more than just the purely mundane. He taught and he shared truth about much more than just the purely practical. And so today we're going to delve into one of the great metaphysical beliefs of Christianity in terms of what Jesus taught. And so what we're going to talk about today is the Holy Spirit. So you may be familiar with the Holy Spirit as one of the three persons of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the third person of the Holy Trinity. See, the Holy Spirit is a metaphysical aspect of Christ's teachings and a metaphysical aspect of our belief, as I said. It is one of the mystical beliefs of Christianity. The word mystical simply means that we believe that the spiritual world can be manifested in the physical world, and spiritual things can have an actual impact in the physical world. For example, when we say that we believe in miracles and believe in the miracles of Jesus, that is a mystical belief. And so the Holy Spirit falls into that category. So let's just talk about three brief passages where Jesus gives us a glimpse of what and who the Holy Spirit is. In John 14:15 through 17, as Jesus is preparing to leave his disciples, he tells them, "If you love me, obey my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate who will never leave you. He is the Holy Spirit who leads into all truth. The world cannot receive him because it isn't looking for him and doesn't recognize him. But you know him because he lives with you now and later will be in you." Later in John 14:25, Jesus continues by saying, "I am telling you these things now while I am still with you. But when the Father sends the Advocate as my representative, that is, the Holy Spirit, he will teach you everything and will remind you of everything I have told you." Finally, in Luke 12:11 through 12, Jesus says, "And when you are brought to trial in the synagogues and before rulers and authorities, don't worry about how to defend yourself or what to say, for the Holy Spirit will teach you at that time what needs to be said." So you see, in the first two passages, Jesus is giving us the picture of an advocate who's going to come and dwell with us, in us, forever. See, Jesus himself walked the earth in the flesh, and he left the earth. He was crucified, died, was buried, he rose again, and then ascended to heaven. So Jesus, as fully man and fully God, is not walking the earth anymore, but he didn't leave us completely alone. He says he will give us the Holy Spirit, and he says the Holy Spirit will teach us everything and remind us of everything that Jesus told us. So this is very important. So when we read further in the book of Acts, we see the disciples praying together in the upper room on the day of Pentecost with the Virgin Mary. And they're praying for this Holy Spirit. They're praying for this advocate. They're praying to Jesus, "Send us the advocate." And he does. And I encourage you to read through that passage in Acts for yourself. It's a beautiful passage. And the first thing that the Holy Spirit does with Christians is he gives them the power to speak in all different languages on the day of Pentecost in Jerusalem to proclaim the light of Christ. You see, in Pentecost, there were Jews coming from all surrounding regions speaking many different languages to celebrate Pentecost in Jerusalem. So the Christians are praying together in the upper room. The Holy Spirit comes upon them, and now all of a sudden they're preaching in their own language, and everybody is hearing it in his native language. That's just kind of the first glimpse of what the Holy Spirit does. But the Old Testament works also record the Holy Spirit at work in many people's lives. Not just Christians, but people way before Jesus Christ. So the Spirit is something that has always been with us, but has a special mission from Jesus Christ after he ascended to heaven. A special mission to dwell with us, to teach us things, to remind us of things, to guide us. You see, the Spirit, we believe the Spirit dwelling in us is our guide, our teacher. He convicts us when we're doing wrong. He encourages us on the right path. He leads us on the paths of wisdom. He consoles us. It's the very Spirit of God. There's another passage that I really love that says who knows the inner heart of a man except his own spirit? And the Spirit of God knows the very depths of God himself. So the Spirit dwelling within us, guiding us, teaching us, encouraging us, that same Spirit knows everything there is to know about the Almighty Creator. So it's very interesting. That is what Jesus left us. His very Spirit that knows him as well as he knows us and dwells within us to teach us. So I want to touch on a couple things really quick for those who might not be familiar with the Holy Spirit. We believe that God is one God in three persons. So we are not pantheists, or we do not believe in more than one God. We do not believe in three gods. We believe that there is only one God. However, God has chosen to reveal himself to us in three distinct ways: as the Father, as the Son, and as the Holy Spirit. That's not to say he couldn't reveal himself to us in 1,000 different ways, but he chooses these three. So that doesn't mean that there's these definite three things that exist necessarily, but that God chooses to express himself in this way, to kind of come down to our level and commune with us. So another interesting thing about the Holy Spirit is different Christian traditions believe different things about when one receives the Holy Spirit and how one receives the Holy Spirit. Catholics, for example, believe that one receives the Holy Spirit the moment he's sealed with oil after baptism. Pentecostal Protestants, on the other hand, act out the story in the book of Acts and pray on their knees for hours asking for the Holy Spirit, and believe that it rushes upon them after fervent prayer. Many traditions believe many things, but what Jesus teaches is the same. You see, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter exactly when the Spirit enters us or how. The actual metaphysical mechanics are not as important as the fact that God dwells in us in the person of the Holy Spirit. So, friends, in all that we do, when we listen to the teachings of Jesus Christ, when we meditate on these things, and we try to align our hearts and minds with the teachings of Jesus Christ, as a Christian, it is the Holy Spirit who allows us to follow through with these things. When we read about turning the other cheek, when we read about taking care of the poor, when we read about unconditional forgiveness, these things are not possible for a human to do by himself. But if you ask for the Holy Spirit, God will give you the Holy Spirit who will allow you and help you and strengthen you to do anything that Jesus has asked you to do through his word and through these teachings that we're discussing together. So, and at the end of the day, God is greater than all of our traditions and all of our denominational differences. And at the end of the day, God the Father and Jesus the Son can grant the Holy Spirit to anyone whom he chooses, in any way whom he chooses. We don't write the rules. We just get the joy of living with the very presence of God in our hearts. So this week, let's think about that as we go along and as we try to walk the path of virtue. Think about the fact that within us dwells all the power that we need to live virtuous and saintly lives. And may God bless you all this week.